Hello there, beautiful people. We are live and talking about self love and self doubt, how to get from self doubt to self love this beautiful, beautiful day. I hope everyone is doing fantastic, and I can't wait to share this with you and answer questions. And let's have a beautiful conversation that helps take us all to more growth and more self awareness so we know when we are doubting or judging ourselves so that we can move that needle to a place of love and not judgment, but kindness and caring. The same way you want to treat the dearest children in your life. Think of yourself maybe as a child again and love yourself and nurture yourself that way. In when things don't feel like they're going right, be kind to yourself. It's huge what a difference even that much can make in terms of moving the needle towards self-love. And self-love is where you get to let all the magic in and have the most amazing life. And it's doable. It's absolutely doable for all of us. If you're on, take a minute to say hi, hello, so I can see you. I can't wait to get into this topic because it's so much of the basis of everything and the ability to get to live an extraordinary life. Happy Monday, Kimberly. It's so fantastic to see you. So, one of the things that I've become so aware of is self doubt often starts, sometimes we don't see it. Kids like seem to be so confident, but also we're un, unintentionally, many times parents and adults are constantly telling them, how they need to do, who they are, who they're supposed to be, all the rules they're supposed to follow. And they are learning to connect from the outside in. They're dependent upon other people's opinions of them to feel good about themselves. And so that starts a trend that can take us out of knowing who we are in the long run and having a lot of self-doubt. And so, like when I was a child, if I was in trouble, if my parents were mad at me, I was supposed to be very upset about that. And I was. But, really and truly, my in the big picture of things, I didn't make them mad. They chose to be mad. And it's not my responsibility, whether I'm a child or an adult, to for other people's reactions to what I do. But we're because of that not understanding within adults too, that's not how we learned it. And there's no criticism for the adults in our lives. Everybody's just doing the best they can. But it's an opportunity for us to understand how we started living from the outside in, and we don't really know who we are. And we think that we have to get others to um, believe us and understand us and be on board with who we are or what we want to do before we can do it. So we're spending all of our energy and get becoming exhausted trying to explain to others who we are or what we want to do. And in that process of feeling like we also learn that it's our job to make others happy. That's what we're taught in that whole scenario is it's our job to keep others happy. And you can't make anyone happy but yourself. Not for any, in the best marriage in the whole world, you still are only responsible for your own happiness. You can love the other person, you can be kind to the other person, you can do good things, but only they can make themselves happy. And that's where those lines, we lose those boundaries, right? Because we learn to that we're supposed to make others happy and that our path to happiness is dependent upon making others happy around us. Not everyone learns that way, but a lot of people, a lot of society operates in that manner. And it takes us off our game. It makes us doubt ourselves because when you can't make somebody believe or be happy, when you are continually, they want you to be responsible for their happiness and you never measure up. You can't make them happy because they're not happy. They're choosing to not be happy. You can't fix that. So it's this endless like treadmill of exhaustion that doesn't feel good. And we start to have that same judgment on ourselves if we didn't already. Christina says, have any tips on how to recognize and override the self-doubt? Sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. And isn't that that's exactly it. And a couple of things, self self appreciation. So the appreciation guide that, I know I talk about appreciation a lot, but it is a giant tool because if you take a moment every single day to appreciate things that you've done, this is going to help break that cycle a bit. And because your brain is so ingrained in self-doubt that you don't know it. And you spend all your time, and then somebody gives you a compliment and you don't even take it. You say, oh no, oh no. So that's another thing you can learn to do is you can practice saying thank you and accepting when someone gives you a compliment and not turning it away, because that's a really important part of getting past. Exactly, Christina. And that's a really important part of getting past that self-doubt is because we're not taking it. In other words, not only are you blocking your appreciation, you're not letting anybody else appreciate you either. You're saying, oh no, that's fine. Oh, it wasn't anything, but it was. And you want to own that and you want to step into it and say thank you and appreciate that person's appreciating you, and also appreciate that you did what they are complimenting you for. That's a huge one. And actually that will help you learn to appreciate yourself as well, right? It's like both of those, each of those will work together and they will help you start. Then you'll start noticing, because we say such things to ourselves so constantly that we don't even know we're saying it. We don't recognize it. We don't hear it. And it's so internal to us. And the key to the extraordinary life that everybody has the opportunity is coming to the place of being able. I haven't been able to make that voice go away, but I recognize it a lot more, and now I make it a game. And I can laugh at myself when I hear those thoughts. But I understand that it is more than laughing at. I will have a conversation with myself to change that pathway, because it has everything to do with how good you feel. And how good you feel has everything to do with actually being connected to God, source energy, to the universe, to feel those intuitions and connect into the magic. It's letting yourself be who you are, right? And accepting it. And a lot of times it comes from parents are trying to help us be the best person, and they don't. So many times they learned and they were taught by saying mean things and doing, and now we know when we nurture children that it doesn't help to be mean and say ugly things, and it makes it worse. And that being more appreciative and pointing out the good stuff. And then when you do say, hey, you could try this, you say it in a kind way, more as a suggestion, not as a criticism. Something that I learned on my pathway too is advice that's not asked for is criticism. And that's interesting, right? If we give other people advice and they didn't ask for it, it comes across as criticism instead of love, even if you're thinking about doing it because you love that person and you want them to have more. So some of it, we step back and have to love people right where they are, but then we could turn that in and love ourselves right where we are and nurture ourselves where we are. One of the big things for me that actually helped me start hearing that voice in the head and start to recognize boundaries was also self-care. Like thinking of things that made me feel better. Exercise, fixing good food for myself, but not only that, setting a place, sitting down to eat it, like I matter. And especially I do that because I live by myself. I'll set a place setting and sit down to eat, because that's nurturing and that makes me matter, even if I, am not living with someone else and setting a table up for dinner or going out to dinner. So I would love to hear more questions on what you guys are feeling Christina, this is just blowing my mind. I never really considered the whole people pleasing and difficulty with boundaries could come from our parents or people who taught us. I feel like I've never heard it put that way, but yeah, because, and nobody, they didn't do it to us on purpose. Like a lot of times they don't have boundaries either because they learned it the same way. And when people talk about boundaries, if you if you haven't got to that place of loving yourself, it's very difficult to figure out those boundaries. Like I remember that it felt good to me to feel needed. It meant I mattered. Like I didn't really like myself. So when somebody else needed me, or and so I was constantly in, including my ex-husband relationship, that I never made them happy. But I poured the effort into it, and I'd be exhausted. And as I started the journey of self-care and positive, I started to get boundaries started to come. I started to recognize things that I didn't recognize. Like other people could talk to me the way I talked to myself, and I didn't recognize how mean they were talking to me because that was the voice in my head all the time. It seemed normal. And so that's how we end up in those situations. And we can't really blame them because we don't. We have to learn to love ourselves in order to be able to set those boundaries and even recognize that we're allowing other people to do that to us. A simple example is that I had a friend that we'd been friends for quite a while. I helped her through a difficult divorce. I was there for a lot of things, and I was going through chemotherapy, and I called her up one day, and she talked for about 20 minutes, and then she said, "Oh, I'm at my boyfriend's house now. I got to go. Bye." And I hung up the phone, and she never asked me anything. Didn't ask me how I was. There was no part of that conversation that involved me at all, other than to answer, or have she asked me advice about something. But I hung up the phone, and I realized for the very first time, and I've been friends with her a very long time, that it was absolutely not a two-way street at all. And at the time, I remember being so aware of it, but not yet ready to deal with it. And it actually took me close to another year, and it was exhausting before I actually realized, before I was able to walk away and say, this is exhausting and it's not helpful to me. And it's not. When we let other people drag us down, we're letting them take us away from our dreams and our goals, and we really aren't helping them, because when people are in a negative space and they're venting and complaining, they can't see the solution from there. And if we are listening, we've now put ourselves in that same situation where we're not in a good place for what we want to come to us, and we're not helping them. And so that was a big realization for me too. Oh, not only am I truly not helping them, I'm definitely not helping myself. It's exhausting. Kimberly says, realizing my insecurities and learning how to love myself has been the hardest, yet most rewarding part of my journey so far. Oh my gosh, Kimberly, I so agree. I so agree. And beautiful journey as the ahas come, because then you get to see things in a different light. And you can love those same people, but you can love them from a distance. Like you send them love, you wish them love, you wish them well, but you stop taking on the responsibility for their happiness because it isn't yours to begin with. It never was. They just made you feel that way, and you felt needed back at that point until you realized that that isn't how you get there. How do you handle guilt around setting boundaries? I think I have some trauma response around it, but I'm curious as to if you've experienced it and how you get past the guilt feeling. That's from Christina. So that is definitely, and it's funny because I was talking to a dear person yesterday about this. Um, she's in a situation where someone else is taking advantage of her in the way that I was describing and just sucking all the energy out of her. And the aha moment for her is when I said, not unfortunately, when people are in that place where all they want to do is just vent and be negative, we're not helping them if we stay in that place with them. But worse, when we get down in that place, we're actually pushing our dreams away and making what we want not matter. So one of the there's I'm going to throw out some different things, Christina, and you pick from it what feels better and then ask the next question, because this does take some tweaking and it's a little bit individual. um Something that Jack Canfield teaches that started helping me at least realize it was, you an exercise he teaches is you walk around a room, and I'm going to use you guys since we're in the virtual room. Hi, my name is Dr. Lucette, and my needs are as important as your needs. Hi, my name is Christina, and my needs are just as important as your needs. So the first thing is the boundaries are when somebody is taking from you and there's no return. That's not a two-way street. Um, feel guilty because that person is the when someone has decided that they need you to listen while they vent, they put you in that role, and they will try to do the guilt trip thing for sure. So it takes some work, and it also pre-pave the way. What I mean by that is you want to imagine, and I don't mean imagine the conversation going well, because you cannot control their response. So it's really important to stay in that place of you. Get yourself, like, a daily practice is in the morning is to get yourself in the best feeling place as possible, and do your appreciation and that kind of thing. And when you kind of want to plan what you're going to say, if this is someone you routinely have an interaction with, is like that. Or you may even choose texting. We do have some tools now at our disposal that are very helpful in this, to set some boundaries. The response isn't going to be good. One of the most beautiful things I have learned, because what traps us in this situation is we feel like we have to respond, knowing that this conversation is going to turn into a difficult one that feels miserable, which is how we get suckered into again saying yes when we didn't want to. One of the most powerful things I learned was, you do not have to enter a conversation you do not want to participate in. And what this means is, if you set boundaries and someone comes back to you and they're really pushing and not being fair about it, you don't have to answer them. Even if it's someone you love very much, you do not have to start the answer, because in fact, you never want to put yourself in the place of explaining yourself. You're not going to get them to agree. That's the trick that they do to you, is you feel like you have to get them to agree that it's okay for you not to do that for it to be okay. You feel like they have to be happy about it, and you can't get them there. And so you have to let go of that. And it does come back to practicing self-love and realizing that you matter, and realizing that who you are in your keeping yourself in a place. It's not, and here's the thing, it's not selfish to keep yourself in a happy space, because you have so much more to give. What's happening when you have these people taking this much energy from you is you have two or three people that are taking everything that you are. They are sucking all the energy. And the magnificent, fantastic you that has so much to give the world, has no energy for the rest of it. When you are able to let go of those people and say, you know what, whatever their reaction is fine. I love them. I'm not mad at them. But it's okay with me if they're not happy with the fact that I'm going to take back who I am, and I'm not going to operate in that space, and I'm not going to participate. And then Christina says, I've definitely been agreeable to avoid an argument in the past or an uncomfortable conversations. As yes. So here's what I used to do in a situation. My mother, and God love her, I know she was doing the best she could, and I love her. She had a tendency to talk negatively about other people, and to conversation, people I loved, people I cared about, I didn't want to participate in that conversation. Took me years to understand that listening is participating, and it taken me down. One of the things I learned to do very simply, if this started on the phone, was, I love you, Mom, I gotta go, bye, and I just hung up the phone. One day I went, I love you, Mom, I gotta go, and she went, oh wait, I didn't mean to be negative. I had learned through a series of trial and errors, you try to change the other person and you can't. That's who they are. But I just decided that when she was going down that pathway, I wasn't participating anymore. When we could have a wonderful conversation, I'm all in. Did I change her? No. But did I change who she was in the conversations with me? Yes. When she wanted to have a conversation with me, she didn't go down that path of talking ugly about other people, because she knew that I would say, I love you, Mom, I got to go. Bye. And that's what I mean by you found boundaries where you're not arguing with them, where you, if it's a texting conversation, I got to go, love you, and then turn off the phone if you have to. Do something to take yourself away from it if you know that they are going to push for a while. Because they will, if you are firm on your boundaries, they will change as far as their interactions with you in one way or another. Or they'll disappear and go find somebody else that they can push, which is fine. You can love them from that space. You know, my friend, I wish her the best. I would never wish anything less. And it's just that I have different friends now. I have two-way street friends. You're still there for people. Sometimes they're still in a tough spot, but it's not 100% of the relationship. Denise says, I have finally learned how to do this. I no longer participate in conversations that do not value me. Yeah, or value others, right? Or conversation, because for me, I don't want to talk badly about other people. That has the same effect as the effect on your energy, the effect on who you are is just as profound when you're talking negatively about other people as it is when that voice in your head is talking negatively about you. That's the thing. And that so I look at it as God, the universe, loves us all just the way we are. We do not have to be any way different. There's a clear understanding of all the places we've been, all our perceptions from our own challenges that have us less than perfect. And so my goal, and I don't always get there, but my goal is to be that kind of love, have that kind of love towards other people. And you think that means no boundaries, but it doesn't. You have clear boundaries because if someone is someone who always, the way they feel better about themselves is talking about other people, they're not going to be in my sphere very long because I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to have those conversations. I'm going to disappear when those conversations start, one way or another. Move out of that space and not go somewhere if I'm invited, if that's the group, if that's the kind of conversation that happens. And so I'm not gonna be in that space. And my space, I value my space around me very much. And the kind of conversations that we have, the kind of people and the kind of conversations, because it matters. It matters. You can love anyone, whether they're gossiping or not, but you don't want to participate. You don't want to stay in that circle. Even listening is participating because it's like silent agreement. And so, and you'll have that stuff in your head and you'll find that you think something about somebody and then you wonder if it's true or not. You don't want to participate in that and you want to see the best in everybody as much as you can because that will allow you also to see the best in you, which is so important to who you are and who you get to be. Yes, I agree, Eleni. Absolutely. It's so important. And gosh, people don't do it. They really do it because they're insecure and they're finding ways to try to make themselves feel better. But we want to make ourselves feel better by appreciation of self rather than running ourselves or anybody else down in order, running other people down to try to make ourselves feel better. And there's a really big difference, obviously, and a really big difference in how life goes for us when we operate from that space. So, self-doubt sometimes comes from others criticizing us, but the better we get, the more you do your appreciation on a regular, like daily basis. Try to appreciate yourself at least once a day. But the goal, if you're writing it down on a regular basis, you'll start to appreciate yourself in your head. And that's a game changer because then you'll really quickly hear that voice when it's not kind. And then you'll realize too that your voice sometimes thinks that a way about others because it's a matter of changing. We get to change. We get to teach ourselves to think differently from what we learned. And that's a huge part of us getting to live the life that we really, truly want to live, and get to be who we're meant to be because we're created. Every single person is created amazing and awesome. And it's all this stuff from the outside in instead of the inside out that takes away from us seeing that and believing it. Self-doubt takes us away from believing as big as we can receive. And we can only receive as big as we believe. So really working on that self-love And that voice in your head and using these tools will change your belief. And then what comes to you is bigger, and your inspirations are crazy, and what happens out of it is so amazing and transformational, and everybody is worth that. So it's just a lot of fun to get to know that. Does anybody have any other questions around self-doubt to self-love before we take off? And if you think of questions later, you're always welcome to put it in the chat section here. We're always checking what everybody's saying during the week, and this whole month will be different aspects of self-love, boundaries, how to get better at our boundaries, and how to recognize when we don't have them. Be, and it does come back to loving ourselves, honestly. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of your Monday and a really fabulous week, because every single one of you is so worth it and so worth an extraordinary life. Bye. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.